Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today we watch Daman lead his vampire counts against Diplomatt's empire in another game from the clan community tournament. Remember to follow the link in the description below to check them out and become part of the competitive scene. Vlad von Karstein leads the vampire counts with the Curse of Undeath, Aura of Dark Grandeur, Invocation of Nehek, Raise Dead, Master of Beguilement, and the Karstein Ring. 3 units of Skeleton Warriors, 4 units of Skeleton Spearmen, and 2 units of Cairn Wraiths form a large, relatively cheap army that will be able to engage and hold Flagellants while also setting up a potential encirclement. The Black Knights and 4 units of Fellbats will probably look to shut down enemy range support or provide support with rear and side charges, and by spreading fear around the field. 4 units of Crypt Horrors add a great deal to the infantry line, bringing in some heavy-hitting armor piercing, while the Black Coach comes in with Black Scythes, Unholy Vigor, and Black Nimbus, probably hoping to get around front lines and get some great rear and side charges into the enemy infantry lines. Boris Todbringer leads the Empire in the air with Crush the Weak, the Middenland Runefang, and Foe Seeker. The Bright Wizard comes in with Kindle Flame, Cascading Fire Cloak, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and a Scroll of Shielding. The Bright Wizard is always a great call against an army that might bring units with regeneration, especially when you're bringing Kindle Flame. 2 units of Spearmen will look to hold enemy cavalry at bay without being put at risk, while 4 units of Flagellants will look to hold the line. The Handgunners and Silver Bullets will provide armor-piercing range support and magical damage as well, of course, while the 2 units of Knights of the Blazing Sun are another great pick against the Vampire Counts, especially since they have regenerating units, and they're good to bring, especially when you've brought Kindle Flame to the field. Reiksguard will provide them cheap anti-infantry support, while the Demigryph Knights with Halberds will look to shut down enemy large units. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about deployment, and there's no other way to say it. It's relatively simple from both sides. Let's start with the Vampire Counts. As you can see up front, they have all of their skeletons. We've got the Skeleton Spearmen on either flank, 2 apiece, while in the center we have the Skeleton Warriors. Vlad von Karstein right in the center there providing some support, while the Cairn Wraiths are right behind the center on either side ever so slightly. Again, able to pick and choose where they dive in, bringing their armor-piercing support, obviously able to come in from the flanks and the rears as well, however they might choose to approach it, while we have the Crypt Horrors right behind them, again, able to pummel through the front lines and bring a lot of pain with their armor-piercing damage, able to, of course, come in from the sides as well with some rear charges, and their poison support is going to make a huge difference as well with the attribute damage it does. Then we do have the Black Knights here, along with some Fellbats scattered around the field. Again, these guys can shut down enemy range support, but they can also block off enemy large units that are trying to come in for some flanking maneuvers and just hold them in place, allowing the Vampire Counts to respond. And we do also have the Black Coach here, again, probably looking to come around the front, get some nice side and rear charges, get some decent damage in, because it is armor-piercing, it is anti-infantry, so it can do a decent amount of work if used properly. Now, let's take a look at the Empire here. These guys, again, keeping it pretty simple. We've got the Spearmen covering either flank as infantry goes. Then we have the Flagellants right down the middle here. Boris Todbringer up in the air right behind them, able to provide melee support as well as support through things like Crush the Weak, of course. And then we've got the Handgunners and the Silver Bullets. And both of these guys are armor-piercing. The Silver Bullets also have magical ammo, obviously. So that's going to be very helpful, especially since we do have Cairn Wraiths on the other side of the field. Then, all the way at the back, Bright Wizard on foot, able to provide magical support, while on the right we have both units of Knights of the Blazing Sun, and on the left we have Zinthler's Reiksguard as well as the Demigryph Knights with Halberds. With Kindle Flame on the field, thanks to the Bright Wizard, the Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be extra efficient, but let's see how it all breaks down on the battlefield. So let's kick it up a notch here right from the get-go. Both armies are very aggressive, which is always nice to see. They're both pushing towards each other, and you'll see the Fellbats as well pushing off to the sides, again looking for opportunities to either shut down range support or shut down enemy cavalry, while Boris Todbringer here pushing up to engage some of those central Fellbats. Fellbats are very dangerous. They're often underestimated, but they can cause a lot of damage both tactically and physically on the battlefield. Meanwhile, you'll see both sets of cavalry sort of pushing out to the wings at first to get ready for some flanking opportunities if possible, but meanwhile on the left side, as seen from the Vampire Count perspective, you'll see these Knights of the Blazing Sun are pulling back, while this one does stay up front to try and tackle the Crypt Horrors over here. Meanwhile, we do have Zinthler's Reiksguard and the Demigryph Knights with Halberds over here to try and tackle these guys. As they push forward, you'll see back here the General of the Empire, Boris Todbringer, dives into some of these Fellbats, does a little bit of damage, but really not enough to cause any real concern, and the Fellbats are able to push right through. Meanwhile, as these Silver Bullets push up within range to open fire at these Cairn Wraiths, take a look at how much damage does get dealt with just that one volley. They're about, I think, a fifth of their health dropped, so pretty well done there, making sure that the Cairn Wraiths are targeted by those magical bullets. Now, at the same time, the handgunners on this right flank over here opening shots off at the Crypt Horrors. Some of those initial shots eaten by the Skeleton Spearmen's shields, but the Crypt Horrors are starting to take some damage, and meanwhile, on the left flank, you'll see we do have the Fellbats sort of shepherding these Knights of the Blazing Sun, bogging them down, and these Crypt Horrors unfortunately being sent in to try and cause some damage, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun turn around and get a charge in actually. Now, because these guys have regeneration and Kindle Flame is active, they're very susceptible to fire damage, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun, as we all know, cause fire damage. So let's take a look at how quickly they start to fall apart right away after the charge hits. These guys are falling apart. Obviously, the bullets from the silver bullets is not helping the cause of the vampire counts. Meanwhile, on the right here, you'll see we have some charges going down, and as these charges go down, as the Demigryph Knights with halberds dive into the Skeleton Spearmen, tossing them aside, and the Zintler's Reichsguard here dive into the Crypt Horrors as well, you'll see we have Flaming Sword of Ruin activate as well. So great timing with the spell there, making sure that these guys get hit by the charge under the influence of the Flaming Sword of Ruin, which obviously imbues them with fire damage. So the Crypt Horrors on this side as well, taking a lot of damage, very quickly falling apart. The Fellbats do come in here, though, to try and provide some support, to try and scare Zintler's Reichsguard away, but unfortunately that's not going to be enough. These guys are already at half health with half morale, and meanwhile on the left as well, the Crypt Horrors are at half health, morale is almost completely depleted. The Fellbats there are crumbling as well, they've been left in for far too long. The Spearmen decided to dive in as well to help beat on these Crypt Horrors, and unfortunately these Crypt Horrors as well, diving in on that party. They really shouldn't be there, they should be pulling away. Meanwhile in the center, you'll see the Black Coach is actually being chased by Boris Todbringer as it decides to dive through these flagellants here, just tossing them aside and doing a fair amount of damage. Unfortunately, the Knights of the Blazing Sun from the Empire do come in to respond and hold the Black Coach in place, and doing so quite well while Boris continues to give chase and try and cause some serious damage there. Meanwhile, you'll see here, we do have on the left flank a bit of chaos breaking out here as the Crypt Horrors here push up against the flagellants, while the Knights of the Blazing Sun here actually decide to disengage, and that was a bad call. The Knights of the Blazing Sun are doing a good job here taking care of the Crypt Horrors. They've started to crumble, but that's not the time to pull back. Now, the Spearmen here are a little frightening, of course, but you should pull them back and send them back in for another charge, cycle charge them, but unfortunately they're being pulled out permanently to deal instead with some different units. And meanwhile, over here you'll see the Silver Bullets have been bogged down by the Fellbats, stopping their fire from going off, and that's a great call because the Cairn Wraiths are right here, and if the Silver Bullets continue to open fire, these guys will be taken care of like they're nothing. So good call there, shutting these guys down, but unfortunately the handgunners over here still able to open shots off, while on the left, or rather on the right flank, as seen from the Vampire Counts, the Fellbats are crumbling, the Crypt Horrors as well crumbling. They're taking a lot of damage very quickly. Skeleton Spearmen don't really stand much of a chance either, so well played by the Empire there, making sure that range fire continues to come in as well and causes a tremendous amount of damage. At the same time over here, the Black Coach causing some hurt to the Silver Bullets and then pulling back around to try and hurt some of these flagellants as well, but the Knights of the Blazing Sun back here pushing into the Fellbats to try and shut them down once and for all, and doing so quite well. Look at the amount of damage done right away. Those guys are falling apart immediately, and meanwhile over here you'll see these Crypt Horrors also falling apart immediately. Not a chance, they're not going to stand around for much longer, and there you have it. They disintegrate completely while the Fellbats are falling apart as well. On the left flank, meanwhile, the Crypt Horrors are slowly crumbling away. The Black Knights over here pushing in as well. They really need to be sent in a lot more aggressively, while these zombies are brought up as well to try and bog down the Silver Bullets as the Fellbats were taken care of between the Knights of the Blazing Sun and Boris Todbringer, sorry. The Fellbats had no chance, so the zombies were brought up to try and bog down the Silver Bullets, but unfortunately the Silver Bullets are being pulled back as well into some safety, while the Knights of the Blazing Sun are being pushed in to hold these zombies back. Again, Kindle Flame is active, so the Knights of the Blazing Sun are useful no matter who they're up against with their flaming damage available to them. Meanwhile, these Skeleton Spearmen back here getting a little bit too adventurous, chasing after the Demigryph Knights with halberds, getting completely destroyed, crumbling now with negative 59 leadership, so they're not going to stick around for much longer. While on the right flank, we do actually have Zintler's Reichsguard wavering right now, very close to routing because of those Fellbats staying back there. A decent amount of damage coming in through the Skeleton Spearmen, so these guys are starting to waver. Meanwhile, you'll see the Black Knights over here in the center, pushing in finally for some aggression, going in against the Knights of the Blazing Sun just to try and fend them off and give these zombies some freedom, some reign on the battlefield. Unfortunately, not pushing in fast enough or hard enough to do enough work. Boris Todbringer as well staying there relatively safely, while we saw another Flaming Sword of Ruin go down as there are some Crypt Horrors in here. So again, just trying to take care of these guys while the handgunners, the Silver Bullets rather, open shots off as well to try and get some damage in. The Black Knights here really should be pushed down here, and you see that's exactly what happens here as they dive into the Silver Bullets and they cause a decent amount of damage, try and take care of these guys once and for all. Meanwhile, over here, Boris Todbringer is bogged down by these Skeleton Warriors, holding him in place as Vlad von Karstein himself dives into Boris to try and cause a decent amount of damage, while the Black Coach over here running away from these Demigryph Knights with halberds, trying to get another rear charge as well in a very tough spot, but trying to scare these flagellants away as the Cairn Wraiths and the Skeleton Warriors do push through. The Black Coach as well continues to push forward as it tries to dive into these Silver Bullets over here, and again shut these guys down once and for all. It does a decent amount of work. These guys are terrified, and they're now pushing away as Invocation of the Heck does go down to try and keep the Vampire counts alive on that left flank. Meanwhile, on the right, you'll see won by the Empire quite well, though those Zintler's Reichsguard, as you can see, haven't done so well. They were pushed back, and they're quite badly hurt, actually. Silver Bullets completely taken care of as well, so those guys are now shattered, while over here we have the Crypt Horrors and the Skeleton Spearmen chasing after these Spearmen, and you'll notice that was the big mistake. By leaving these Crypt Horrors alive, by pulling the Knights of the Blazing Sun away earlier, these Crypt Horrors are still on the field, and they're still able to do a lot of physical damage, armor-piercing damage, attribute damage, and of course morale damage. So bad play by the Empire, pulling the Knights of the Blazing Sun away just a little bit too early. Meanwhile, over here you'll see we have sort of a mosh pit going on as these handgunners are opening fire. The Demogryph, or rather the Zintler's Reichsguard here, looking for an opportunity to come in with a nice charge, while these spearmen down here need to push in as well. We need to get a full surround here, absolutely essential at this point, at this stage in the battle, to try and get a full surround, and you can see the Vampire counts are doing just that. These zombies brought up right behind enemy lines, while the Black Knights here charging into Zintler's Reichsguard, trying to cause some damage and take care of these guys ASAP. Meanwhile, in the center here, you'll see the Knights of the Blazing Sun are being terrified away. We've got some Crypt Horrors in here. We've got Skeleton Warriors, Skeleton Spearmen, zombies coming up from behind them. So a lot of fear and terror taking place there, while the Black Coach still keeping busy, looking to dive in once more from the side. Maybe hit the Bright Wizard in there, dive in, get some damage into these flagellants as well. Handgunners, though, still able to open shots off at the Black Knights, so doing a decent amount of damage there, while back here you'll see these zombies trying to close this gap and take care of the central situation. Over here as well, you'll see the flagellants are trying to take care of the Skeleton Spearmen and the Crypt Horrors and the Skeleton Warriors as well, but really at the end of the day, the Crypt Horrors are going to do the bulk of the heavy lifting there, while over here the handgunners trying to hold these guys at bay, but unfortunately Zintler's Reichsguard completely terrified away now, while the Black Knights are beginning to crumble. They really should have been sent down to shut these handgunners down once and for all, but at this point, Pyrrhic victory for the Vampire Counts. Now, the Vampire Counts took some risks with the Crypt Horrors. They sent them right into the Knights of the Blazing Sun, but it seems as though the Empire grew a little overconfident as a result of a good start. The large number of Fellbats were able to shut down range support from the Silver Bullets and reduce enemy morale with rear charges, and as a result of their presence and activities, the Empire wasn't able to take full advantage of its own mobility on the field. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and highlighting such great battles from the community is always a good time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.